Now then, students, I am going to show you how to unpack and set up a clock. So you pay attention, you see this? Okay, now we'll be normal. Okay, Jen, Bob, here's the clock in the box that you presented it to me, directly or indirectly in. I don't have it taped up, but it probably will be when you get it. So after you open it up, you'll have some of your nice packing that you had in it. We'll be covering it, etc., etc. So obviously you remove that, and down here on one side you'll see some of your nice green packing. That holds the pendulum, as I have it in there right now. So you pull that out, and then you can get your hands in here in whatever way it takes to lift out the clock. And there you are. All right, so that's all there is to getting it out of the box and the like. Let's see, before I put the pendulum on, which is the main thing to show you, a word or two about, you know, the look of it and the like. It still, unfortunately, has the glass ring on the top of the case and some other marks up here. I did some good cleaning of it, but it didn't quite get down to absolutely gorgeous. So I would be okay with that if it were mine. If you want to get snazzy, you could take it somewhere and have it replated. That can be done. And then it would look basically like new. But it's almost better for it to not look like new, in my opinion. Okay, so to install the pendulum, you need to open the back door. And the pendulum, of course, is this guy. And it has two sides. See this little screw on the one side? You probably want that in the back so it doesn't show from the front. The idea of that screw is that once you've got the movable post inside here where you want it for the speed of the clock, more about that in a minute, you could tighten that screw so that it's less likely to change, but I wouldn't, because it's not going to be a problem, and you probably will want it adjustable for speed occasionally. Okay, anyway, here's your loop at the top. That has to be turned this way, of course, not that way, to go over your little hook. Then the little hook is right in here.
Point to it again.
Right there at the end of this wiggly that comes down. Right. And that's what you got to do. You can see it wanting to wiggle by itself, which is good. And what you'll need to do there is probably get a hold of it like this, stick it through the coil gong, I think is about the easiest way, and then just manipulate it in such a way that the loop is over that hook and your pendulum is now attached properly. Okay, since we're looking at it from the back, obviously you do that to start the clock running. And this is a good time to talk about one of the most important aspects of making a clock work properly, which is having an even tick. If a clock doesn't have an even tick, it really can't be expected to run, like very long at any rate. What an even tick means is simply rhythm, that it needs to go dot, 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 not dot, 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 dot. So let's use the clock itself to show you the difference there. I think as it is right now, if we get nice and close and listen, we'll be able to hear this nice even tick. Dun, 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 dun. Right? Nice and even. Now I'm going to tip it over just a little bit. Hear that? If it ever sounds like that, you can't expect it to run very long. Now, I think it's going to be good for you if you have it on a flat surface without any kind of adjustment whatsoever. But occasionally, if a clock does have an uneven tick, you may actually have to shim the clock itself up, the whole case and everything, by putting a little something under the feet of one side or the other. But in this case, I don't think so. And it's not likely to have a problem with that in transit or anything else. So you should be good to go. And anyway, all of that's I'm about to do in reverse to get the pendulum back off of it again, pack it up for you. So that's really basically all you need to know. The two doors, front and back, have little latches on them. And I noticed that the one on the back, you can either fix it so that it's sticking up, and then when you close the door, turn it down, or vice versa. You could have it sticking down, I think, and turn it up. But the one on the front is a little bit more temperamental, which is just fine. It wants to be up instead of down when you close the door, and then you give it a little turn, and well, I may be wrong about that, but at any rate, it should, latch in such a way that it'll keep the door from swinging open. And I think that's almost all I've got. Well, obviously you're winding and setting. Unfortunately, as of right now, I forgot to bring the key from home, but I'll get it to Karen tomorrow morning, and you'll have that. It's an 8-day clock, so you wind it once a week. If you obviously just stick the key in the right holes there. The key turns counterclockwise to wind it. But you'll find that out easily enough. If you try to go the other way, it simply won't move. And you can wind it until you can't wind it anymore. You don't have to think about breaking a spring. It won't happen before you get to a point where you're feeling a serious resistance. So you can wind it fully once a week. Then setting it is simply a matter of moving the minute hand around until it's at the time you want. Like so. It's saying 3 whatever, and we would like to make it say, let's say 5 o'clock. So you just keep moving it around. Oh yeah, and of course it wanted to strike for us, and I didn't let it. Okay, wait a second. Yeah, I'm going to do that again because you may have heard that it only struck one time.
Yeah, that's not 5 times.
Right, and I think we won't have a problem with that. That was a half hour like, and we'll probably get another half hour here. One time. Now we're going up to 6, and this time I won't zip past it like I did. And it knows to stop at 6. This kind of mechanism, if you do go fast and pass numbers and things like that, it's no problem. It'll correct itself when you get where you're going. You can't even run them backwards, but it's kind of not recommended. So anyway, that's that for winding, setting. The only other thing is speed regulating, as we call it. There's 2 ways to do that on this clock. The back end of your key will have a small hole that can go in this little guy right up here. And if you turn that clockwise, you'll be shortening the pendulum and making the clock run faster, and vice versa. But probably a better way is to go in the back and manipulate the little nut at the bottom of the pendulum. This guy right here is a nut. And if you just take a hold of that, and again, clockwise or tightening is going to make the clock run faster, and vice versa. But it's for me, it was behaving just about right. But that's a standard thing with a mechanical clock, is that they don't run, exactly the same speed at all times of the year. So there's a little adjustment. That's part of the fun of it all. I think that's all I got for you. So it's a nice clock. It probably goes back to at least the early 20th century, maybe even the late 19th, but it's worth a few hundred. It's not an ultra precious clock, but maybe as much as 500.
So enjoy. In terms of, you know, its health and the like, it's run great for me for many weeks with not very much more than just a little TLC and lubrication. So I think it'll give you a bunch of years. Enjoy.